take the time that you've been given. We haven't asked for it, but take that time, treat it as a gift, and start to discover what these are, so that when the world gets back to normal here soon, you have a newfound focus on the things that are going to move you in the direction you want to go towards in your life, as opposed to just allowing that wind to swirl you around in an emotional tornado. Let's get out of that, and let's make sure that we can start to actually make decisions on purpose with our lives and start to move closer to those goals that we've set for ourselves.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. This is your host Neha at peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view, integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award that's specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and channel that receives more than 400,000 visitors a year, and we also publish several interviews with well-known names globally every month. We have with us today Brant Menswar, founder of Rockstar Impact. Brant is a core values activist, former rock star, and one of USA's top speakers. His books and podcasts expand on the groundbreaking work around value-based leadership, described as disarmingly simple and incredibly powerful. Brant believes that with a rapidly changing world, the value of engaging employees as well as driving performance is changing as well. For this diverse workforce, Brant delivers one-of-a-kind wisdom for living the amazing life that one is meant to, by identifying the non-negotiables that are at one's core. So with that, we are very intrigued to talk to you today, Brant. Thank you so much for coming over at peopleHum.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So Brant, you're the founder of Rockstar Impact, a company that's been running for the past 10 years. So I've glanced at your company website, and it definitely seems very interesting. So could you tell us a bit about the ideology behind your company and the wonderful work that you do there?
Sure. So basically what we focus on is helping companies establish values-based leadership. One of the things that we find very often is that at least in the US, they are results-based leadership, where everything is focused on the results, and promotions are sort of predicated upon a certain result that is got. But we try to get people to shift away from that, because we don't control outcomes. We can only control the deliberate intention that goes into making decisions. Yeah. And so we try to get them to think about how they're making decisions. What is the process that they're using for leaders to be better leaders? And that happens when we just sort of establish and discover what our non-negotiable values are, so that we can link them to the company's non-negotiable values. We have to build those bridges. And so what my company does is we build bridges between personal and organizational values.
Wow, that sounds very inspiring. And I love what you mentioned about putting in that effort and then making sure that you get the outcome and not actually focusing on the outcome. That's great. Yeah. So Brant, I also want to ask you, I'm very intrigued about this, about the black sheep mentality that most organizations tend to have, and something that you have widely spoken about. So coming to certain black sheep values that can often be perceived as a misfortunate tendency, how would you say that employees should own up to defining their own qualities and be empowered instead of demotivated? So could you speak to our audience about your concept behind black sheep values and how it benefits employee mindset and productivity?
Well, I was 47 years old before somebody explained to me the truth behind why farmers don't value black sheep in the same way that they value the rest of the flock. And, we have spent hundreds of years with this preconceived notion as to what a black sheep is. And we've sort of put it out that the black sheep are the outcasts, right? The ones that are not part of the normal regular flock. They are the difficult ones. But that's just not true. The truth is that the reason that farmers don't value black sheep like the rest of the flock is because a black sheep's wool cannot be dyed. That's right. So every black sheep, in effect, is 100% authentically original, and it can't be twisted or changed into something that it wasn't meant to be. When I heard that, I'm like, that's literally my life's goal is to discover what I consider or call our black sheep values. What are those deeply held personal core values that, like a black sheep's wool, no matter how much someone wants to try to influence or change you, they simply won't be moved. Once we discover what those are, the reason that we need to do it is we can't do anything on purpose until we know what these values are, because our purpose is derived from these specific
Absolutely.
non-negotiable values. And the reason that we want to figure it all out is that's the beginning of making better decisions, is we start to filter these decisions through our non-negotiables, and it allows us to be more deliberate with our intention.
Absolutely. I feel like all of our listeners and viewers have felt this way at some point.
Mhm.
And listening to you today might just open up a whole new perspective to them. So thank you so much
So,
for that. Employees may perform their best individually, right?
mhm.
But in your opinion, how do you think they can aim to achieve the same results in maybe, say, an organization wide level? So, do you have any tips or views that you can share with our audience?
Well, we have an assessment that is a free assessment that anybody can take, right? So you can go to findyourblacksheep.com and take the assessment to get to your flock of 5 black sheep values. The
Mm-hmm.
reason that I tell you that is because the number one value over the last couple of years that people have been taking the assessment, we have thousands and thousands of people who have taken it. The number one shared value is connection. And it's the number one shared value by a 50% margin to the next closest value, right? So it is so far out front. It's sort of how we are wired as humans. And so while, yes, we can accomplish things individually, we were really built for connection. And that requires us to discover those values that matter most to us, because when we can link them, black sheep recognize other black sheep. And so the idea is, if these are my non-negotiable values, it's going to help you decide how to treat me, the words to use when you talk to me. You're going to understand sort of what matters most to me in my life. And when we start to communicate with each other and connect with each other at that level, it's where all the incredible things like innovation happen, because it allows me to bring my unique contribution to the table every time. It's not just groupthink. It's not just, hey, let's all brainstorm and come up with this one idea. You are actually bringing ideas to the table filtered through these non-negotiable black sheep values.
Wow, that sounds very inspiring, and that actually does make a lot of sense. So, Brant, I was also intrigued when I came across your views on programming values into one's daily routine. So, I'm sure that most of our viewers and listeners did have an existing routine in place before the pandemic happened. And there was a big disruption in the way that things work. So, as someone who also holds expertise in change management, how would you say one can look for more adaptable values and sort of make them their new normal?
That's a great question, and it's often how people view it. But what I'm going to tell you is that people shouldn't be looking for values that make them more adaptable. It's identifying what those non-negotiable values are, because those values are what actually makes somebody adaptable. When you own what those values are,
Mm-hmm.
it allows you to focus on only the things that are non-negotiables and not get distracted by other things that might be really important. The interesting part in the assessment, when somebody takes the first step of the assessment, it presents them with 125 commonly held personal core values. And it
Wow.
says, really quickly, look at these words. If the word resonates with you, if it's important to you, go ahead and select it. And what we know after a couple of years and all the data that we've collected is that the average person selects at least 30 things that are really important to them. So why that matters is, if you have to make a decision and your brain is trying to filter through 30 things that are really
Absolutely.
important, it's emotionally exhausting. You're going to fail. There's no way you're going to honor 30 things every single day. So then you start to feel shame. Then you start to feel anxiety, or you start to get depressed because you can't be perfect with what you have put forth as your goal, whether you realize it or not, whether that goal is spoken or unspoken in your brain. You have said, these are the things that I don't want to violate. So we have to take that subset of words and we have to get them down to something that's manageable. So when we get to our non-negotiable 5 and we prove that they are indeed ours and that we're not caring for somebody else's sheep,
Right.
we can start to focus our efforts through those things and let go of the 25 or 30 other things that we know are really important, but they're not non-negotiables. And when we do that, it allows us to be more adaptable. It allows us to be more resilient. So in the face of change, where we are facing uncertainty, which uncertainty triggers our brains into fight or flight mode every
Yes,
single
yes,
time. And so
yes, yes.
if we know that's biological, we can't change that. What we
Mm.
can do is identify those non-negotiable flock of 5 black sheep values that we can lean on when we are in the sort of in the midst of change, to know exactly what to focus on, as opposed to getting distracted in 20 different directions by things that are important.
Definitely. I feel like that is a very, very simple approach to what's happening
Mhm.
around us right now. And it's a much needed approach because literally everybody, no matter where you are, in which corner of the world, I'm sure this answer is going to benefit our audience because everybody's going through it right now. And
Exactly.
Brant, lastly, do you have any passing remarks for our audience?
Absolutely. So what I would say is this: there has never been a more important time in our lives than to discover what these non-negotiable values are. Um, as the world has sort of spun out of control this year, um, the idea of being out of control of things, of not being able to control your life because of whether that's the pandemic, or the work world has been spun upside down. My world of live events has just disappeared. If we don't figure out what these non-negotiable values are, it makes it incredibly difficult to stay positive, to find
Yes,
hope, to believe that we'll get through this in some way, shape, or form. Um, Take the time that you've been given. We haven't asked for it, but take that time, treat it as a gift, and start to discover what these are, so that when the world gets back to normal here soon, you have a newfound focus on the things that are going to move you in the direction you want to go towards in your life, as opposed to just allowing that wind to swirl you around in an emotional tornado. Let's get out of that, and let's make sure that we can start to actually make decisions on purpose with our lives, and start to move closer to those goals that we've set for ourselves.
absolutely. That is a wonderful note to end this interview on, Brand. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. Thank you for taking the time. And I wish you and your business all the very best.
Thank you so much. Truly appreciate it.